Well, joining us now is Emeka Onyegbule, who is the General Manager of Market Analysis Unit at the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the news.
Thank you, Adesu.
Well, some would say you should celebrate your little wins, but there are those who have also queried why we're celebrating the 5,800 megawatt generation, because in the past we've seen ministers of power announced 7,000 megawatts being generated in this country. So there's controversy around, and maybe you can clarify for us for that, on that. But the question really is, we hear of this increased capacity, we hear of a planned proposed 10,000 megawatt next year for generation and transmission capacity. But the reality for many Nigerians remains blackouts and unreliable power. So where is the missing link? We see these figures being celebrated by governments, but I want to be able to switch on power and have it on.
Okay, thank you, Adesu. It's important we celebrate the little wins. Like you said, is a journey from the past. We've been through this over a long time, but it's quite gratifying that Nigerians have an opportunity to have a bit of good news instead of system disturbances, blackouts all over the country. So we're excited that it is happening at this point in time, and is a testament to the effort of government and the regulator to put in place a structure that delivers power to the people. So we understand the issue about people experiencing blackouts now and then, but we must understand it's a journey. The reform process is a journey. Until we get to that point where we're able to deliver lights to everybody 24 hours 7, we will keep trying, and that is what we're doing at the moment.
Okay, that sounds very interesting, and I'm wondering, how exactly are you able to achieve this feat, and how really sustainable is it? Because as at today, around 3 p.m., we had another grid collapse in the Ikeja, axis. Is this, sustainable? What are the sustainable moves that are being, made, or, policies that are being put in place to ensure that we don't go back from this 5,800 landmark?
Yeah, thank you, Ngozi. So, that is the Commission's focus right now. We need to think beyond the 5,801 megawatts. And so, like I said, we are moving on. The good thing is we are beginning to see reform yield some positive dividend like this. And the Commission is doing everything within its mandate to ensure that we're able to curtail, to a very large extent, the issues of disruptions in power. So many things are going on at the same time. As you heard from the MD of TCN a few days ago, there are a lot of projects that are completed. A lot others are almost completed in the sector. And all these projects are geared towards improving reliability and availability to customers. And the government is doing a lot also on the part of government. We are building transmission lines, so many of them going on at the same time, because you will remember that it's a sector that has suffered from lack of what I would call inadequate investment in the past. Right. So there is a lot of resources required to channel into the sector to improve availability and reliability. On the part of the Commission, our duty is to ensure that our market is able to pay back to investment in the sector, and it's very, very critical. We're working to ensure that investors find the power sector attractive enough to come and put in their money in the sector.
What does that translate to? Increased tariffs? And I'm asking because there's a challenge on ground where the NLC, which is the Nigeria Labour Congress, is threatening to go on strike. They're saying you are forcing customers into bands, when in reality, band A, which is providing not less than 20 hours power for Nigerians, should be the right of every Nigerian. How do you respond to queries such as that from the NLC? They are prioritizing higher tariffs instead of efficiency.
So from the Commission's point of view, we are not prioritizing higher tariff. And I will tell you, for example, since 2022, the bands B, C, D, and E has not experienced any tariff increase. And over this time, we have experienced high inflation rate. We have experienced floated naira that impacted significantly on the business we are doing. But the government kept those stagnant because they wanted Nigerians to enjoy power at minimum price. But the question about it is that price sustainable? And that goes to the heart of what we're doing. Remember, I started by saying that investors must be willing and able to come and put in money. If you don't have a cost recovery framework in place, nobody will be willing to, stake his money in the sector. And that is the point where we find ourselves right now, that we need to do something, and very fast, to ensure that, investors get their money, customers pay what we call affordable tariff. Being at a stagnant tariff from 2020 till now is not sustainable either. So we're saying
neither is having unreliable power since 20 God knows when to now sustainable.
So we are taking both together, all right? What you have to understand is the chicken and egg hypothesis, which one comes first. An investor has to recover their money. And the only way they can recover their money is when you guarantee them cost recovery. We are saying, okay, it might be too hard for Nigerians to bear. That is why the Commission is consulting and engaging with different stakeholders, including government, to see a way to lessen the burden on Nigerians.
And that's why stakeholders are saying this model of privatization may not be working, that a PPP model is more ideal, for everyone, the public-private partnership model. So
it depends. It's a matter of context.
Right.
Already you have federal government putting in money into generation. The Niger Delta Holding Company, power company, is building power plants. They are building transmission lines all over the country. Yeah, the FGN Co is doing the same thing currently. All over the country, there are so many activities going on. The federal government is also investing in transmission lines. So if you talk about PPP, it's about government bringing in, their own contribution, and private sector bringing in their own contribution. But remember, as a market evolving, government can't carry the burden alone. And that is why we did privatization in 2013 rather, to ensure that we bring in private investment into the sector. But it hasn't worked quite well the way we expected it. But we are on course. I can tell you, we are on course. I mean,
where's the deal with Siemens now? Where exactly is that? And which aspect of the power, value chain are they coming into? So
Siemens is already deploying what we call power transformers across the country, different locations. Again, it's meant to expand the quality of power available to people. Because if you recall, if you're in a transformer and you're so far away connected to the transformer, you experience what you call small light. So what Siemens is doing is to bring in capacity that can improve offtake. And they are doing that right now. Every part of the country is feeling the impact and is on course. So, and that is what I'm saying. The federal government intervention is in very many aspects of the sector. And we must understand it's a highly capital intensive sector that requires, so much funding. But the government is doing well. All we're trying to do is to create an enabling environment for private sector to come and also partake in the good things happening in the sector right now.
I hear you loud and clear. I mean, you talk about, everybody's in business to make profits. So you don't expect anybody to come into an environment where they won't make profits. And so we have to have cost-reflective tariffs. But, you also talk about big investment. We've had such as Siemens, we've had World Bank investment in the power sector. What is NERC doing? Yes, what is NERC doing to ensure that despite all of this investment, we don't have leakages? I mean, some would draw parallels between the investments we're having and the power we have on ground. On the other hand, there's also the argument that when you look at the grid as it is today, a lot of huge businesses have left the national grid. The likes of Dangote have built their own power plant, and so many businesses. In fact, some statistics, and you may want to counter that, say about 60% of big businesses in Nigeria are no longer on the national grid. So where is the power going? I mean, when we celebrate this small win such as 5,800, who has this power? Where is the power going?
So that's why you have to understand again. You see, that's to ask the question, what is driving the private industries leaving the grid? It is two things. The epileptic nature of supply that causes unreliability, because some of these machines need to be run on 247 or no matter the duration of the production process. Now, if you have an interruption in the middle, it destroys everything you've started. Now, most companies are running away because we don't have that level of reliability. And that is why you can hear the MD of TCN saying we are building power lines. We are crisscrossing the whole country. And NDPSN is building power lines, crisscrossing the whole country. And other multilateral agencies are funding this project. But because they are projects that take long gestation periods, and they're also the projects that it will take a while for it to be transmitted into usefulness to the consumer. So that's why it's taking a little bit of long. But right now, what I'm saying is that we have reached a point where we need to maintain the momentum to ensure that we get to that point where we have solved this problem. It's important to have the industries on the grid. Without them, the tariff will even be too high for residential people to. So
yeah, but some stakeholders are saying the grid, the national grid model is not sustainable. That's time to break up the grid system.
So
don't you agree? I mean, for a country like Nigeria, everybody's relying on one, grid system. How sustainable is that?
So I've had so many people say that it's about perspectives. And there are some other countries where you have grids that are long bigger than Nigerian grid. They're working, but we're saying, okay, at this point in time, it's a matter of policy to say we want to break the grid. But what we think the grid is suffering from is inadequate investment. Even as we speak, there is plans to have what we call private transmission investors in some portions of the grid to complement government efforts in strengthening the national grid. Because it's not because it's big, it's because we've not done the right decision, investment at the right time. And in power sector, for any postponed decision, it brings some catastrophic effects later on in the year. And that is why we need to build this consistency, the momentum. Now, the GENCOs are able to do 5,801 megawatts, which TCN has comfortably evacuated. The Commission in our processes is planning that in 2027 we should be having about 7,500 effectively discharged to the grid. And so when we hear that we have done 5,801, it is very, very exciting.
And you're also projecting 10,000 in 2 years.
Yeah, that's
how realistic is that?
So the 10,000. That's what the MD TCN did. And he's saying it based on the level of infrastructure investment they're doing. But understand it is a value chain problem, okay? So you need to build generation capacity also. The discourse must be in a position to offtake the power. Otherwise, you can't reach that level. So it is a gamut of solutions that we're putting on the table. But we're only assuring Nigerians, look, we need to do what is necessary to put this sector in the right footing. Otherwise, we'll keep running generators in this country and it will not bring us relief.
Very quickly, please, before we let you go, there's this incident that happened in Lagos, where military personnel, actually, Air Force as a matter of fact, stormed the Ikeja electricity company, distribution company. And the question that's been asked is, discos, of course, are asking for justice, based on that. But are customers supposed to buy? No, that's a different question entirely, because I had somebody say, look, one of the questions you should ask, should customers buy AEDC meters? That's on the one hand. But military formations, should they pay for electricity? What exactly is the practice, to the extent that you have a military formation owing as high as
over 4 billion naira in 10 years?
Yeah, so, Ngozi, what happened in Ikeja is quite regrettable and it's sad. We expect the military to be, in terms of our street planners, they are very disciplined for us. They shouldn't engage civilians in the manner we saw allegedly on television.
Yes.
But the fact is, okay, so we expect that government should be able to appropriate sufficient amount of money for the security agencies, for the MDAs all over the country, knowing that this sector has moved from government-owned to private sector. So now, if the military is unable to pay their bills, they should go and ask for more money to pay the bills. We understand
as simple as that?
Well, it has to be, except the government want to subsidize the military. And again, it's not a strange thing. In some countries, they are subsidized, but there has to be a government policy to support that.
Right.
Until that government policy that comes to say, look, don't charge or bill the military, they are accountable for the energy they use. And to tell you that it has amounted to the figure you quoted, 4
billion,
above 4 billion, means that maybe they've not been paying overtime. But the approach, is that the solution? It's not the solution. The people that went and harassed are innocent people, okay? And they're just making a living in the place. It's just like where the student military comes here and start beating everybody off. I don't think it's a solution to the problem.
Great. Just before we let you go, I know Ngozi had said that was the last question. Apologies. For a country as ours, as large as ours, and an economy the present administration projects and hopes to build to a $1 trillion economy, how many megawatts do we really need for this economy? You said we are on course with 5,801 megawatts. How many do we need?
So maybe it will be difficult to estimate the quantum of energy we needed. But if you compare it with some other developing countries or even developed countries, in a country like South Africa, they are managing 45,000 megawatts. They're still experiencing blackouts in some locations. So you can imagine, with the 200 and something million people, we'll probably be needing twice of what South Africa is consuming. But having said that, you have to create what we call effective demand. That's the ability for people to pay for the product. Now, in other climes where these things have happened, the people learn to pay a lot more than what they used to pay in the past. That is the only way to drive the investment. But we need as much as possible, because if all the private industrials are leaving the grid, if we want to get them back and they actually come back, which they will when the grid improves, because it's actually cheaper to use the grid than using private generation. So we'll be talking about in the region of maybe 80 or more than that megawatts for the country. And that is the goal.
80,000.
Yeah,
80,000
maybe.
megawatts,
Yes.
yes.
Roughly.
But what's the immediate projection apart from this 10,000 in 2 years?
So,
What is realistic for this population?
It's not about realistic. So what we're saying is that even as we speak in Abuja, within the city, on the periphery, a lot of people are not seeing power. We are thinking that we cannot agree that we're making progress until we touch every part of this country.
And that's a good place
and
to
that is where we are going to as a commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Emeka Onyegbule is the General Manager, Market Analysis Unit, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. Next time you're here, we're going to ask you more questions on the regulatory end of things. Thank you for joining us.